Fala galera, começando aqui, tava até meio difícil fazer essa transmissão hoje, acho que eles deram alguma bloqueada, mas tá tudo certo agora. Me avisa se vocês estão conseguindo escutar, vai ter a entrada agora dos jogadores, enfim, todo o ritual inicial. Marshall, cheio de brasileiros, daqui a pouco a gente vai comentar um pouco mais sobre, contra a Georgetown. Para quem não acompanha tanto o college, às vezes não deve saber, mas a Georgetown ela foi campeã nacional do ano passado, então é um time muito forte, vários atletas foram draftados, então acabou mudando um pouco o elenco. E a Georgetown no ano passado, mesmo sendo campeã nacional, foi a primeira vez que ela chegou na final e a primeira vez que ela foi campeã nacional, então também não é aquela equipe muito tradicional. Então teve a homenagem inicial deles e o jogo vai começar. Uma novidade também, daqui a pouco vou sair aqui rapidinho para a gente começar essa transmissão, deixando o jogo rolar. Eu tô com o coach Rafa, que a gente fez uma live, Rafa Martins, Rafa Simões, quer dizer, confundi com o coach da Marshall tal. Ele ia fazer a transmissão junto comigo, só que, enfim, teve alguns problemas, ele não vai poder, mas ele tá aqui comigo no WhatsApp e ele vai poder comentar. Coach Rafa foi assistant coach da Marshall, ele que montou a grande base desse time que hoje está chegando nos nacionais, e agora ele está trabalhando na University of Ohio, no feminino, enfim. Então ele está aqui com a gente, vai mandar alguns áudios, vai comentar com a gente, e classificando para o Final Four a Marshall, que é o que a gente espera. Aí a gente vai ter uma transmissão com o coach para a gente poder comentar, enfim, ele conhece todos os atletas. E é isso, começou o jogo, já, narrador, começou, vocês estão escutando o narrador também? É legal para poder treinar o inglês e tudo mais. Então eu já volto com algumas estatísticas, só estou resolvendo aqui alguns pontos. Tive um atleta que recebeu hoje a Letter of Intent, não sei se o Luigi está aqui, só vou dar uma olhada aqui na carta para ele poder assinar, proposta de bolsa fechada e já volto aqui. Daqui a pouco posso atualizar um pouco mais sobre essa carta de intenção que ele recebeu, enfim, tá fechando a bolsa dele para em agosto desse ano. Então, pra você entender que ainda tem muita bolsa sendo fechada por agora. Vou só sair aqui para resolver isso rapidinho e já volto. Fechado? Vamos ficar aí na torcida pela marcha. Enfim, Pedrão tá aí jogando como volante, deu uma conversada comigo antes. E tentar falar com eles logo após o jogo. Semana passada a gente não conseguiu, mas dando tudo certo hoje, a gente fala com eles. Fechado? Vou deixar rodando aqui um jogo um pouquinho e já volto aí. Valeu!
They are led by one of the best goalkeepers in the country, Oliver Semla. Then their right back, he is a brick house. Jean-Eric Leinholst was flying against Clemson. He is number 30. Their right center back, number 20, is Colin Masi Yunas. Next to him is left center back number 6, Nate Dos Santos. Gabby Alves is the left back. Max Schneider, who scored a wonder goal off a free kick against Clemson, is in the middle of the park. The heart and soul of the team is number 10, Pedro Dolabella. And then number 8, Vinny Fernandez, a high school All-American recognized by United Soccer coaches. Up top, as you see, Rothrock making the run and Rothrock earning a corner kick is Milo Yosef, an All-American last year. Vito Diaz, the Conference USA Player of the Year. And number 17, Joel Souza. That's your reset, and we're ready to go. Dean Linke, Dan Helfrich, as here we go. Georgetown and Marshall. I need you to reset after this corner kick.
Ó, e ele deu a escalação da Marshall, é legal que todos os brasileiros estão de titular hoje. O Pedro de volante, o Gabriel na lateral esquerda, o Vini, que até ele falou, foi All-American do High School. Não sabia disso, mas o Vini no meio campo titular e lá na frente o Vitor Dias e o João. Então os 5 brasileiros estão de titular hoje. A galera reclamou ali de um pênalti na mão, ainda bem que não tem VAR, também não vi se bateu. Mas legal, 5 brasileiros hoje titular e a gente vai acompanhando. Eu tô até pegando aqui já, galera, começou também o jogo da Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh a gente tem o Rodrigo, brasileiro lá também, número 11 da Pittsburgh. Então, tendo momentos por lá, eu vou passando os melhores momentos aqui, gol, enfim. Então, são os 2 jogos simultâneos. Fechado?
Big red truck that pulled in a couple hours ago and they parked back here where they're not supposed to park, and this older gentleman got out of the car and he said, I just drove 900 miles to see my Marshall team, and of course they situated his car elsewhere. They called Chris Grassi. He was no connection to the soccer team, but he and his wife, this gentleman was in his 70s, said, I want to support the Thundering Herd.
So this would be the Thundering Herd's first ever trip to the College Cup. It would be the Hoyas' third. Of course, Georgetown won the national championship a year ago in this complex in Cary, and so Cary's been very kind to the Hoyas. Dean, early we saw Georgetown attacking down the left side, trying to overload that side with Riviere and Deleuze, as they did so effectively in the first half of Penn State. Grassi certainly broke down the game film, and we'll see how he combats that.
Just to finish that story, it was Ron and Della Roberts, and he confirmed it was 982 miles that he drove to be with the rest of the Thundering Herd, who I will admit were enjoying adult beverages pretty early this morning here at WakeMed Soccer Park.
Yeah, the fans enjoying adult beverages, but this is a business trip for Chris Grassi and his staff, Dean. You spend time with Coach, you listen to his press conferences. It's very clear it may surprise the college soccer world that Marshall's here today. It doesn't surprise the Marshall staff and players.
It doesn't at all. In fact, Chris Grassi confirming that if they do, in fact, upset Georgetown, or in your words and even Chris's words, not upset Georgetown, just do their business and beat Georgetown, the guest speakers coming down will be none other than Randy Moss and Chad Pennington. That's pretty legit.
It is legit. You wonder if Jason Williams might join him, the former Miami Heat point guard. But
is he a Marshall guy too?
He is a Marshall guy.
I love the way he played.
And so lots of Marshall athletic prowess for sure. But the interesting thing is, while the composition of the two rosters, Dean, are very different, the style of play not too different. Both coaches coach and teach a possession-oriented style. They want the ball on the carpet, and this is a beautiful carpet here at WakeMed in Cary.
Georgetown comes into this game with that win over Penn State by a score of 3-2 after knocking off High Point by a score of 2-0. Of course, Georgetown coming out of the Big East, taking on the Marshall Thundering Herd. Georgetown number 8 in the country at 10-1-2, Marshall at 10-2-3.
And this is a Marshall team that did reach the round of 16 a year ago, losing out in Seattle in a difficult place to play in Washington. But Grassi, who, as you said, Dean, has been at the helm for 4
E galera,
years
outro lembrete é que a Georgetown, mesmo sendo campeã no ano passado, ganhou da Virgínia, esse ano eles não foram campeões da conferência deles, a Big East. Eles foram convidados pelos votos. Então a equipe mudou bastante. E o Nuggets da Zoeira perguntou se algum brasileiro da Marshall tem chance de ser draftado. A maioria deles não se forma ainda. O único sênior é o Pedro, então ele ainda joga em agosto e ele pode participar do draft no final do ano. Então, Pedro é o número 10, imagina se 10 capitão, imagina sendo campeão nacional agora e em dezembro, 2 títulos em um ano sendo capitão, chance de draft é grande. O Vitor Dias também, ele tá na semifinal do McHerman Trophy. O McHerman Trophy é a bola de ouro do futebol universitário, o melhor atleta de futebol universitário. Então também, se ele foi eleito isso, sendo campeão, enfim, as chances estão aí. Então todos ainda têm chance, mas a maioria deles ainda são ou freshman ou sophomore, então eles ainda vão ter mais anos aí para poder revisar algo no draft. E é isso, o jogo ainda não teve nenhuma chance muito clara, né? O treinador, o comentarista também, para quem tá pegando, de novo, treina inglês, tenta entender o que ele tá falando. Ele falou que os dois treinadores gostam de jogar com a bola no chão, a Georgetown também, ano passado foi campeã por causa desse estilo de jogo, então vai ser um jogo muito mais técnico do que o Marshall e Clemson da semana passada. O jogo tá bom. No outro confronto, Pittsburgh e Washington também segue 0-0. Tendo gol lá, eu volto aqui com vocês. Fechado? E tendo dúvida, qualquer coisa pode mandar aqui. Daqui a pouco vou falar com o coach Rafa, pedir para ele mandar um áudio falando o que ele tá achando do jogo e solto aqui para vocês. Beleza?
He wanted to say hello to his twin sister Mia, as well as other sisters Claire, Rosie, and Annie. And then he said, while you're at it, go ahead and say hello to Claire's son, Archie, and then Rosie's young son, Rocco, as he got all the shout-outs in there.
Happy Mother's Day to all the Rothrock mothers, for sure. Paul's made a huge difference in this program since transferring in from Notre Dame.
I like that you brought up the matchup last year out in Washington. I spent some time with Jamie Clark and went over and said hello to Jay Vidovich as Jamie Clark team's taking on Pittsburgh. That'll be a great game. That's going on Field 4 with Brian Ware on the call. And one thing that Coach Clark did say is if you can get up on Marshall, sometimes the spirit and the heart of this team, it can be a little bit combustible. Those are his words, not mine. And I understand what he meant by that, and I understand you're familiar with that as well.
Yeah, for sure. Marshall's intensity is the word I'd use to describe the way they carry themselves on the field and off the field. And the question is, will they channel it positively in a match that no doubt will have ups and downs throughout? And you see both teams, Dean, electing to take a little air out of the ball at times, wanting to get into rhythm of passing. And Georgetown favoring the left side so far as here's Will Sands.
Hear the voice of Dan Helfrich. I'm Dean Linke. Delighted to be with you for this Elite Eight matchup between, again, your reigning national champion, Georgetown Hoyas, and the Marshall Thundering Herd. No scores so far, but 2 shots for Georgetown. Marshall still looking for their first shot. Trapped down in the corner by Georgetown. That's Joe DeLuz. His cousin, Austin DeLuz, joined me for the Wake Forest game the other night. Of course, Wake Forest under Bobby Muse advancing as well to the Elite Eight. They will feature later against North Carolina.
And Dean, you talked about we haven't had a shot on goal from Marshall yet, but when we do, it's likely to come from Milo Yosef. And you notice him with the blonde or white locks wearing the number 7, the redshirt sophomore from Germany, led Conference USA in shots, leading scorer on this team. And Yosef will ask a lot of questions of that Georgetown back line.
Yosef almost single-handedly won it in regulation and overtime against Clemson. He was going for it. Here is DeLuz with that left foot. I've said that a lot over the last several years. DeLuz with the left foot. Might as well say it here for Georgetown.
It is, but DeLuz got on his left foot because of a diagonal ball from Dante Polvaro that broke 2 lines there. You talk to coaches, you talk about line-breaking passes to force defenders to turn around. That time, Polvara broke 2 lines and gave DeLuz a chance that, frankly, the Hoyas would have liked to have done more with.
Running into a little bit of trouble there is the heart and soul of the team, Pedro Dolabella, but he wins it back. 6'4", holding mid, who has the ability to play up front. He can play in the back. He can play a 6. He can play an 8. He can even play a 10, and he wears number 10. At 6'4", it's not easy to play all those positions, but he can do it.
And here's a formation tactical adjustment by the Hoyas. We saw the same thing against Penn State. Zawadzki, a converted central midfielder, started in the back, but is given a lot of freedom by coaches Weiss, Casper, and Klakota to join the attack when Georgetown has the ball.
Sean Zawadzki, the junior from Olmsted Falls, Ohio, Olmsted Falls High School. What's the word on him returning again for another year? Is he coming back?
It'll be interesting. I think Sean would tell you he's.
Olha, o comentarista elogiou justamente o Pedro naquilo que a gente falou. É um número 10, capitão, mas pode jogar em todas as posições do meio. E nesse último jogo e no passado, ele tá jogando mais de volante, falou da altura dele, da qualidade técnica. Então, é isso. Até os comentaristas já estão notando o Pedro. Então, de novo, sinal bom para um possível draft, ou até para assinar profissional fora do draft, galera. Vocês não têm que ficar tão preso a draft, porque vários brasileiros chegam no profissional diretamente, não precisam passar pelo draft. Então, vamos ficar de olho. E o Pedro, o jogo passado, até conversei com ele depois. Para mim, ele foi um dos melhores em campo como volante, fazendo essa saída de bola. E, de novo, tá roubando bola lá atrás, tá distribuindo a bola de trás. Agora o Vini com a bola. Então, vamos ver. O jogo tá um pouco mais amarrado para Marshall, não estão tendo tanto espaço. Acho que até a Clemson era mais defensiva, mas eles estavam encontrando mais espaço. O jogo ainda não entrou ali na esquerda, onde eles sempre ganham vantagem com o Gabriel ou o Jamie Roberts, que eu acho que ele não tá titular hoje, o Jamie, que foi o draftado. Não sei se ele teve alguma lesão ou se foi opção do coach mesmo, Chris Grass. Mas vamos acompanhar. 0-0 ainda aqui. Lá na Pitt também 0-0. Aqui faltando 31 minutos. E lá na Pitt faltando 29 minutos. Lá começou um pouquinho antes. Então vamos nessa.
Both these teams really like to get their outside backs forward. As you see, Lino's making that run and bringing Joe DeLuz with him. In the Georgetown wide wide midfielders are going to get asked more questions defensively than they did by Penn State the other day.
Here's Joseph from Germany. Good ball in. Is the flag up? It is up. It looked like even from our angle. And by the way, we're seeing exactly what you're seeing. We do not have a view of the field today because they're expecting some shaky weather, Dan. They're talking about lightning and that type of thing, so they needed to keep us tight and close to the truck.
Teria sido uma assistência do Pedro, mas parecia que ele estava realmente um pouco na frente. E não sei se alguém conseguiu entender também, o narrador falou que hoje eles não estão no campo, porque está com uma chance de thunderstorm, né, uma chuva, uma tempestade de raio, então eles não estão podendo ficar lá perto, estão na cabine de transmissão. Então ele falou, também não vi se estava impedido, mas parecia que estava, né? Se ele segurasse um pouquinho, ele ia sair lá na cara e ele tinha rolado para o João. O João iria fazer o gol. Mas uma boa chegada da Marshall. E agora? Boa.
It's our first touch from Tabora. Tabora, a freshman from the Bethesda Academy system nearby the campus of Georgetown. And Dean, we haven't mentioned the incredible, unique turnover in this Georgetown roster. 3 weeks ago, 3 of Georgetown's top players, Derek Dotson, Jacob Montez, and Rio Hope Gund, all wearing the uniform. Fast forward to the NCAA tournament, all of them leaving to pursue pro aspirations. The program totally supportive of that, proud of the accomplishments of those 3 players. But when that happens, the likes of Tabora get asked to play very different roles than they had for the prior couple months.
And not just Tabora, but some other players like Ngo, who is a transfer from VCU. Brian Weiss promised, like he did in the first game, their last game we saw, he will feature again today.
Indeed, Kyle Linares, freshman winger who had 2 assists in the first half, will also do the same. And you see both teams like to play out of the back.
Joseph turns it over. Joseph will knock it out of bounds. Georgetown beating a very good Penn State team coached by Jeff Cook, as we send our best to Coach Cook and the Penn State Nittany Lions, who had a big-time season in the Big Ten Conference. And, of course, Marshall beating Mike Noonan and Clemson is always in and around the Elite Eight and the College Cup.
They are a good season, fall season and a spring season for Clemson, as the ACC, one of the few conferences that played in the fall as well. There's great skill from Joseph. It's just the simple ability to keep possession and launch this counter.
Joseph gave it up, and they were trying to find number 11, Jamil.
Galera, eu postei também ontem um vídeo no Instagram dos 3 gols da Jacksonville, enfim, saindo trabalhando a bola. Cara, e a Marshall faz muito parecido, para vocês verem nível técnico dos jogadores, para saírem com a bola lá atrás, mesmo na pressão. Vocês viram várias triangulações ali do Pedro, né, do Labella, recebeu do lateral, deu no zagueiro, o zagueiro deu do outro lado. Depois ele esticou um lançamento na ponta, o ponta deu de ombro, então tentem analisar isso também para ver realmente que é um jogo bem tecnicamente, taticamente parecido com um jogo profissional, né? O nível é totalmente alto, sair de pressão, triangulação, gerar o jogo, e quando tem que ser vertical, também sabendo ser vertical. Esse time da Marshall é muito encaixado. E agora fazendo as linhas defensivas aqui atrás, o Milo descendo um pouco, o João ali no meio também, o Vitor Dias tentando pressionar lá em cima. Então, é um jogo muito organizado. É interessante vocês entenderem isso, principalmente quem quer chegar lá e render. Não é um jogo bagunçado, não é aquilo que a gente acha, correria. É um jogo mais intenso, mas também não é chutão, não é um monte de jogador perdido. Então, olha lá, de novo, a Marshall saindo de trás, o juiz não deu falta, enfim.
No, and you're playing your 3rd game in basically 7 days, legs a little heavier. I don't think either coach will mind sort of a slower tempo in the first half of this match.
I mentioned our position. I mentioned that only because of the weather that is scheduled. They're talking about potential lightning and rain. And I know as a broadcaster, you're not supposed to bring it up, but all you got to do is look at the weather report. And I also mentioned it because when I see Georgetown, I think of Dave Nolan and the Georgetown women. They were into penalty kicks. They made their first penalty kick, Dan, and then they had a 90-minute weather delay, and they had to sit on a
Fala,
bus,
Matias.
worry about
Exatamente.
nutrition, and
Eles
worry
chamam
about
de
legs, and when
Elite
they came
8, que
out,
são os 8
their
melhores
first three
times. 8
attempts
times
into the
divididos nos
penalty kick,
confrontos são as
2 were saved
quartas.
and 1 was
Quem passar vai para o
missed, and
Final
so
Four, que
sometimes
são
weather
os
can really
últimos
affect the
4
situation.
times,
That's part of
que
the
aí é
reason why I wanted to bring it
semifinal
up.
e depois a final. Então, no
Indeed, a
nosso
bitter end to the
formato de falar, essas são as quartas
Hoya
de final,
women's
sim.
season, but what a program Dave Nolan has built. Georgetown, one of 5 programs that landed both the men and the women in the Sweet 16 this year. And only one of those schools still with both teams alive, and that is the Tar Heels of North Carolina, as the women and Anson Doran advance to the College Cup, and the men will play Wake later this evening.
Yeah, that's pretty amazing. Anson Dorrance, a 21-time national champion, but the last time they won it was 2012. Here's Joseph. Joseph spending a lot of time on the right side. You'll also see him go centrally and even work his way over to the left. He can go about everywhere as that ball gets away a little bit from Dolabella, and he still is able to clean it up and give it back to a Thundering Herd teammate. Here's the right back again, Jean-Eric Leinhos. Joseph. And a turnover, it'll come to Georgetown.
What stands out about Joseph is his patience. It looks like his heart's beating a couple beats slower than most people. The game slows down for him. And while he attempts a bunch of shots when he's inside the box, and the rest of the time he's content to connect, and the sign of a mature player, the redshirt sophomore from Germany.
Just in case people joined us late, remind everybody about the confidence of Chris Grassi in his 4th year. He was at Charleston, set the table with Dan Stratford, who played at West Virginia and is now the head coach at West Virginia. And by setting the table, I mean when Grassi left, Charleston then went on to win a couple, if not 3, national championships after Chris Grassi got that close. But talk about the confidence he has of this team winning this entire tournament.
You listen to him, and it's clear that it's not just coach speak. He believes he has the best team in the country.
Falta perigosa para Georgetown foi mais ou menos daí que semana passada a Marshall fez o primeiro gol, né? O Gil se perguntou chance de draft, já até comentei disso um pouco antes aqui na transmissão. Todos os brasileiros estão muito expostos aí a nível nacional. A gente tem o Vitor Dias, né, semifinalista do McHerman Trophy, que é a bola de ouro do futebol universitário de melhor atleta. O Pedro Dolabella, que é sênior, ainda joga em agosto agora, a última temporada dele. É o número 10 capitão, então vai depender muito do desempenho coletivo, mas chance, todos ali estão bem expostos. Eita, goleirão, solta essa bola aí não.
Yeah, that was Rothrock who had a really nice ball there for Georgetown. And Oliver Semla, he does not mince words, Chris Grassi, that is, about Semla either, calling him the best goalkeeper in the country. And meanwhile, Georgetown's got a pretty good goalkeeper as well.
Indeed. A lot of great goalkeepers actually in the final 8 today. You know, you love Indiana's goalkeeper, who you'll see at 5 p.m. Eastern this afternoon.
Yeah, Roman Celentano, the Big Ten goalkeeper of the year, just a sophomore. Indiana had to come from behind to beat Marquette, and they actually got great performance from Todd Yeagley's son, Ben Yeagley, who's been a bit player for the most part, but he played a ton of minutes. And, you know, back in the days when Godfather had Todd Yeagley out there, Todd Yeagley doesn't get enough credit for being one of the best college soccer players of all time. And maybe Ben Yeagley won't be that, but he did give good minutes.
Indeed. Ball falls to Riviere.
Kept it alive, Riviere. This is a good work here from Georgetown. And that final shot disrupted. It'll come back to Marshall.
It was Haggart there. Positive touch to his left foot. He scored a few that way on the season, but won't be happy with the end product there. One of the things, Dean, that this camera angle allows us to see is the defensive formation of both teams. What I've noticed that Marshall is doing is the line is much deeper than Penn State played. So in the first half, Georgetown really unlocked Penn State. There was a lot of space. Chris Grassi is electing to set up his line when Georgetown possesses beyond half field. That creates less space for the Hoyas. and therefore Georgia may have to be a little more direct than they're comfortable with. So interesting coaching adjustment that Grassi and staff created after watching the Hoyas against the Nittany Lions.
Keep an eye on that as Yosef just runs 40 yards with the ball and gets it back. Yosef, great feet, but a tackle there by Georgetown wins it back. It's interesting. We spent a lot of time talking about number 30, Jean-Eric Leinhos, and I think back to the right back for Georgetown that was so key to that national championship run that has moved on to Major League Soccer. That was a big-time player.
Dylan Nealis, one of the best ever to wear the right back jersey for the Hoyas. Keegan Rosenberry also laying claim to that. Rosenberry went 90 minutes in a great win for the Colorado Rapids this year, has really established himself as one of the top right backs in MLS. Dylan Nealis just changing addresses from Miami to Nashville, where he teamed up with former Hoya midfielder Alex Muil.
Here, speaking of right backs, Jean-Eric Leinhos will drop it back to the engine, Dolabella, who is from Brazil, went to the Pennington School in New Jersey. And got a whistle and
offsides again, Dean, and it's the same situation as before. A wide player should not find themselves in an offside position when it's in the rhythm of play like that. And Dean, we mentioned Kyle Linares earlier. It's not surprising to see him as the first Hoya substitute.
No, he was flying, absolutely flying in the game against Penn State, and was a player that right when he got on the field made a difference against the Nittany Lions.
But isn't it interesting that Hoya Penn State game was so frenetic in the first half hour? Marshall really took it to Clemson in the first 20 minutes to get the lead. Much more cagey, and as I said earlier, a lighter tempo here in the first 26 minutes.
You nailed it. That's exactly the story of this one. There's only been 4 shots. Have all 4 been for Georgetown. None of them dangerous. None of them on frame. And even fouls have been limited. Only 2 fouls against Marshall, 1 against Georgetown, so fair play so far. Good sliding tackle and clean for Georgetown. Marshall didn't think it was clean as the players. Oh, no, it's not clean, so there will be a foul. And I don't think a card, though, to you.
No, and Aiden Rocha thinks it was clean. And the placement of that challenge in a difficult spot for Rocha right in front of the Marshall bench. And the reaction was instantaneous by that very large bench. Marshall carries a large roster. And no card issued to Rocha there, but certainly warned. And if you're a defender and you get that warning, you do know mentally that another foul is likely to land you in the book.
The referee is Mark Kadlesic, who, Dan, I can tell you, I know well. He was the coach of my son at Carborough High School down the road, a soccer coach. He's no longer coaching because he refs so much, and he's also a referee assigner, so there's a little bit of conflict of interest as it relates to that. But Mark Kadlesic has done a lot of MLS games as well. He's a pretty familiar name.
He is, and his good command of the match. Dolabella picks up a loose ball.
Those long legs of Dolabella. Mosiunas wearing number 20 as they bring it all the way back and see what they can do out of the back line here right at midfield as Georgetown drops just a little bit.
Mosiunas, the only member of the starting lineup born in the United States and also the only player in the rotation from West Virginia.
True international flavor. West Virginia drawing him in. Marshall.
But if you're Chris Grassi, just like if you're Andreas Lindbergh of Seton Hall, you come in and you say, how am I going to build a world-class program? You're not going to build it the same way that Jeremy Gunn does or Brian Weiss does. You're going to have to find different types of players, and both of those coaches have found transfers. They've found international players from regions they're familiar with, and all the credit to those programs because in just a matter of 3-4 years, you're on this stage.
Yeah, knocking on the door of a college cup.
Ó, coisa interessante também que os narradores falaram. Tava falando sobre os dois elencos que estão aí. Tem um americano só no time da Marshall, muitos atletas internacionais. E aí o cara falou justamente da inteligência dos treinadores das duas equipes em recrutarem tendo programas não tão glamurosos, igual Clemson, Louisville, Wake Forest. Ele falou, cara, eles não conseguem competir com esses programas nos atletas americanos, atletas de categoria de base, de seleção dos Estados Unidos, categoria de base da seleção dos Estados Unidos. Né? Então, o que eles fazem? Eles olham muito para os estrangeiros, principalmente transfers, ou seja, junior college, o goleiro que está aí alemão da Barton Junior College, outros internacionais que jogam em high school. Então, é a forma dos treinadores fazerem um time competitivo, mesmo não sendo essas equipes com grife, Clemson, Louisville, Wake Forest, que conseguem recrutar muito bem os atletas fenômenos americanos. Então, é interessante eles falarem e mostrando que o trabalho está sendo bem feito e que isso está dando resultado. E uma falta aí bem perto de onde foi o gol semana passada. Vamos ver.
This looks more like a passing situation at the moment. A Marshall player. No idea what that was about. As this one sent in and parried away.
Botou lá de novo, hein? O goleiro deve ter assistido, mas interessante. E esse cara que tá batendo as faltas, esse volante alemão, ele jogou na base do Bayer Leverkusen também. Nível altíssimo de jogo. É um dos capitães também, né? Então, legal, mostrar justamente isso. Até os comentaristas sabem que uma estratégia muito boa para montar times competitivos é olhar para os junior college, é olhar para as transferências de atletas estrangeiros, não só brasileiros, brasileiro, alemão. Então, vocês estão dentro dessa lista, dentro dessa estatística. É isso, vou deixar aqui rolando mais um pouco, tô terminando de ver a carta do Luigi, não sei se o Luigi tá aí, mas falei no início da transmissão, tem um atleta nosso assinando proposta hoje, tô ajudando ele aqui com documentos e tudo mais. Então, rapidão, já volto aqui.
A Cary, North Carolina native who was a star of last season's College Cup victory, Wu, a foot injury. And then a guy like Nielsen finds himself starting from day one.
Yeah, Daniel Wu was running down on the field. I talked to him a little bit before the game, and he did say he's going to try to spend a little bit of time with the NCFC team, which is now USL1. He can do that as an amateur, so hope to be able to call some of his games this summer.
Wu, a terrific student athlete for the Hoyas, and certainly turned a lot of heads in the College Cup last year, including scoring his first goal ever, still his only career goal for the Hoyas. Didn't look accustomed to celebrating, is what a lot of his teammates suggested.
Great kid, too, right? I mean, all these kids are fantastic young men. Tell us about the subs coming in for Georgetown.
A bit of a line change here for the Hoyas. It'll be Trevor Burns, as we discussed the other day, Dean, the son of longtime U.S. international Mike Burns, and also Chris Lay, a senior utility player. And then John Franks, one of the freshmen who very seldom used in the first 8 weeks of this season, but finds himself in a key reserve role.
Of course, Mike Burns, as I mentioned, I was with him in the 92 Olympic team as their press officer. Then he went on to make the 94 U.S. World Cup team roster and was with New England Revolution for a long, long time before that late change to Bruce Arena. What a job Bruce Arena's done, by the way, with the New England Revolution.
Indeed, and Bruce Arena, not surprising given his heritage in the college game, building a lot of that New England team with college players, and including Henry Kessler, who's turned some heads, the rookie center back who was at UVA, played in the national final last year against Georgetown.
DeJuan Jones, the former Michigan State Spartan, hard tackle there from Marshall, another hard tackle. And at the moment, Mark Kadlesic letting him play. He did call that foul over near the Marshall bench.
Yeah, Andrew Farrell from Louisville has been a perennial starter for the Revolution.
Of course, the goalkeeper story for the Revolution is an amazing one. Now with U.S. national team call-ups.
Matt Turner.
Yeah. Over the top, and we have another whistle? How is that offside? Again, just with this one camera shot, but I'm assuming that was the call, offside.
It was the third offside. That one had to be really close. And Georgetown had a flat back line there, and so had that been offsides, there was no covering defender, and Marshall would have been in. And that's, we talked about, if the defense is compact. Even if you don't want to play direct long balls, sometimes that's the ball that's on. And so players like Dolabella know that. Roberts knows that. And so they'll potentially look to play some over the top.
Long boot from Georgetown. Remind us the situation in goal when Brian Weiss led the Hoyas to the 2019 National Championship.
It was goalkeeper by committee. And some coaches, including Dave Nolan, the Georgetown women's coach this year, elect to rotate goalkeepers by half. Weiss actually elected to rotate them by matches. Nicopolitis and Tomas Romero, who was then a freshman and is now Dean, the second choice goalkeeper for the first team at LAFC. So a great preseason for Tomas, who's no doubt joining us on the call today. And the players dealt with it really well. So this is Nicopolitis' first Elite Eight match, as Romero got the call in the Elite Eight in the national final, while Nicopolitis got the clean sheet in the semis last year against Stanford. Burns a great ball, finds Franks, and Franks is offsides. But there you see a little combination play from the Hoyas inside the box. But Dean, we played 35 minutes, and you'd have to say not really a top quality chance for either side.
Mark Kedlesic with a pretty stern conversation right here with Masayunas, and he's not backing down, and I don't really feel like Collins backing down either. Pretty heated. You mentioned Romero tuning in. I think it would only be fitting that we say hello to your former head coach and the longtime head coach at Georgetown before Brian Weiss came in, my former broadcast partner, Keith Tabatsnik, who we know is watching.
Indeed, Tabatsnik, the architect of the early stage of Georgetown rise to prominence, which Weiss and his staff have then extended further. Here's Joseph. He's trying to find spots wide now.
Good drop by Joseph to Dolabella. And a side volley there, and no problem, though, for Georgetown in goal. Youssef, an All-American last year. Coach Grassi telling me COVID affects everyone in different ways. Not as many goals this season. Took him a little while to get going, but he had to stay in Huntington. He couldn't leave and go back to his home country in Germany. So he had to spend all that time there, and it kind of took him a little bit of time as you kind of bunker in, right? So I thought that was interesting as Chris Grassi explained, as Joseph has gone on here, he's starting to heat up again.
Indeed. And, you know, it's been a productive season for sure. 11 points behind only Diaz, who we'll see later in the match.
Under 9 minutes remaining, 4 shots for Georgetown, 2 for Marshall. Marshall has put both of them on frame, forcing Nicopolitis to make 2 saves already. There's only been 5 fouls, 1 corner for each team.
And here again, you see Georgetown retreating their back line, allowing, just as Marshall was doing it the other way, allowing possession in the defensive third.
A little bit of pressure there from Georgetown, and enough pressure to cause a turnover.
And so that's the cue. When Marshall gets closer to midfield, then you see the Hoyas applying higher pressure.
Quick start for Georgetown in that win over Penn State. Junior Jack Riviere and graduate student Martin Engo both managed goals, assisted by Kyle Linhares, who you talked about, while Dante Pavara added the penalty kick to get things started on that handball. Engo's score would prove to be the game winner for the blue and gray. And junior goalkeeper Giannis Nicopolitis posted the win with 2 saves after a strong performance from the back line late in the game, hanging on against that very talented Penn State team. We saw those multiple players come in for Brian Weiss. Has that been standard fare to bring them all in at the same time?
In the NCAA tournament, it has. The substitution pattern's fundamentally different when you're dealing with this roster versus one that has Hope Gunn, Dotson, and Montez. And you see Martin Engo, the super sub, at the scores table, and he'll check in at the next opportunity. See if he can reprise his dramatic heroics with the header in the 45th minute of the match against Penn State.
And you know, Dan, with the clock ticking down, Brian Weist's instruction probably is for him to just run like crazy, right? Run as hard as he can and try to cause some damage.
Indeed. And the instruction that Engo will get is also what most players will get when they're coming into a match, which is raise the level. Make an imprint on the match. You play 6 minutes, make an imprint on the match. You play 25 minutes, make an imprint on the match.
Galera, faltando 6 minutos agora para acabar aqui no jogo da Pittsburgh, faltando 5 minutos. E eu tava conversando com o coach Rafa aqui, e eu pedi para ele mandar um áudio para vocês, falando do porquê que o Jamil não foi titular, enfim, comentando um pouco. Vou soltar o áudio aqui agora, peraí.
And here's Diaz with one of his first touches of the match. This is a Mac Hermann Trophy semifinalist, wearing the number 31. The leading scorer of Marshall, and he's been silent in the match thus far.
Yeah, you're talking about the Conference USA Player of the Year, super silky and skillful, according to Chris Grassi, a threat all of the time. And Chris Grassi felt like Clemson tried to eliminate him by fouling him every time, as he was on the ground a ton in that game, if you recall, Dan.
I do, and that isn't what's happening in this match. As you said earlier, it's been a pretty benign match in terms of physicality, but Diaz still not able to find the rhythm of the match yet. And his opposite number, Polvara, aside from 1 or 2 balls, you'd have to say the same about. So 2 conference players of the year who each team relies heavily on not making major imprints on the match thus far.
Perhaps that will change after they spend some time with their coaches respectively. Brian Weist, the top man at Georgetown, Chris Grassi, the leader of this Marshall team. Brian Weist, 15 years now. Hard to believe, as he has become a staple of Georgetown. And Chris Grassi now in his 4th year at Marshall. And, of course, Dan Stratford now moved on to West Virginia.
Aqui, galera, estou conversando com o coach Rafa, como eu falei para vocês. Peguei com ele um depoimento disso, de o que ele está achando do início do jogo, principalmente esse ponto do Jamil. Ele conhece a galera de lá. Então, vou soltar o áudio aqui e ver se vocês conseguem escutar bem. Vou até mutar aqui, deixar o coach Rafa falar aqui com vocês.
Fala, Marcelo. Então, o Jamil, eu sei que eles sabia-se que Georgetown ia marcar individual. Então, pelo que eu acho que eu tinha falado com os jogadores, o Jamil entrou do banco para meio que dar uma misturada, né? No Georgetown entrou achando que ia marcar individual, aí bota ele na winger oposta, entendeu? Ou bota ele numa posição que não, onde o cara marca individual. Mas é aquele joguinho bem truncado, os dois se estudando, aquele jogo de não se expor tanto, né? Vale vaga no Final Four. Mas manda um abraço pro torneio da Team Brazucas e tamo junto, Marcelo, essa é fera. Outra coisa que você pode ver é como eles estão marcando o Vitor. Onde o Vitor está no momento, eles têm mais superação numérica. Eles não querem deixar o Vitor jogar hoje não, onde eles estão.
Aí para quem não sabe, como eu falei, o coach Rafa ele foi assistente da Marshall nos 2 anos anteriores, brasileiro, enfim, ajudou a montar esse time. E ele falou justamente isso, o Jamil, esse inglês que já foi draftado, estava especulando que a Georgetown ia entrar com marcação individual em cima dele. Então, para bagunçar um pouco, ele entrou no banco para poder depois entrar em outra posição. E ele também destacou justamente isso que a gente tinha falado. O Vitor, que ele quase recebeu a bola agora, tá pegando essa marcação individual para ele. Então, sempre que o Vitor recebe, tem 2, 3 em cima dele. Então, também tá apertado nesse ponto. Só acho que a bola passou. Mas é isso. Valeu, Rafa. Daqui a pouco, alguma dúvida de jogador, alguma coisa, pode mandar aí que eu solto pro Rafa. Ele tá assistindo, ele tá no escritório dele de treinador, então ele não conseguiu entrar hoje participando, mas a gente vai trocando ideia aqui pelo áudio. Vocês conseguiram escutar o áudio bem? Foi fera? Foi bom? Então é isso, vou soltar de novo a transmissão aqui. Faltando 2 minutos, lá na Pittsburgh. Faltando 2 minutos também, eles tiveram uma falta aqui. Parou o relógio, 0-0 aqui e 0-0 lá. E Pittsburgh acabou de chegar lá, mas aliviaram a bola. Então segue 0-0 aqui, 0-0 lá. No intervalo a gente vai conversar um pouco mais sobre as partidas, sobre como está o bracket e vamos continuar na torcida por aqui.
Marshall, the Hoyas and the Thundering Herd. And because of the way this game is going, the green, which were so loud, the Thundering Herd hours before this game has been a little bit silent. And also Georgetown has a nice fan base here as well. We've not heard much from them.
Indeed. I'll tell you one thing, Dean, when you hear that the Hoyas are playing the Thundering Herd, you don't have to question which two teams are playing. Two of the most unique nicknames in all of college sports.
Yeah, I love it. Georgetown played forward, no whistle there with Marquette Lessig all over it, and Georgetown wins it back anyway.
Burns finding the ball in more advanced positions here, and he and classmate Linares' little combination.
I want to talk to Mike Burns because I feel like his son has a little bit more speed. Might need to confirm that with Mike Burns. I'm not sure if he's here or not. Do you know?
I do
this
not.
One comes across.
And there's that Linares-Engo combination again, and Engo wins a corner, I believe, indeed. So we're entering that 45th minute where the Linares.
Ó, último minuto, vocês percebem também que o narrador ou alguém lá avisa, último minuto de jogo, justamente pela regra do college soccer. Na hora que o relógio zerar, vocês veem que o relógio é decrescente, né? Ele vai regredindo. Quando o relógio chega no zero, vai tocar um apito e o jogo acaba. Então, faltando um minuto, o narrador avisa lá, tem placar eletrônico, os atletas conseguem ver o relógio, mas ele dá esse aviso só pra galera se tocar. Ainda bem que não teve gol aí no último lance, praticamente o último lance. Agora a Marshall eu acho que não tem mais nenhum ataque, a não ser que recupere agora e lance o ponta rápido. Ó, aí ó, eles estão contando 10, 9, tem que bater na área logo, faltando 5.
Quickly take it, deflected, and that will be it. So after 45
viu? Aí faz o zero, faz o pip, acaba. Então é isso, por aqui 0-0, Pittsburgh acabou de acabar também 0-0 por lá, as duas quartas de final 0-0. Para quem não está acompanhando também os Nationals, empatou, vai para o overtime, 2 tempos de 10 minutos, onde é gol de ouro, quem fizer ganha. Se continuar empatado, vai para os pênaltis. Os comentários estavam até falando, a Marshall, na primeira rodada, eles foram pro overtime, fizeram um gol de ouro e classificaram. Segunda rodada contra Clemson, foi pro overtime, continuou empatado, foi pros pênaltis. Então, os 2 jogos da Marshall, eles empataram no tempo normal e foram pra prorrogação. Então, podem estar mais cansados por causa disso. Ele falou, é o 3º jogo em 7 dias que eles estão tendo. Então, praticamente, joga um dia, descansa um, então tá já uma rotina puxada para eles. E, enfim, vamos ver como que vai ser o segundo tempo. E é isso, vou soltar aqui rapidão, já volto para a gente comentar mais sobre o jogo. Se alguém tiver alguma pergunta, quiser mandar algo para o Coach Rafa, podem mandar aqui nos comentários. Lembrar também que a gente está com 27 pessoas. Lembra de clicar no curtir aqui, inscrever no canal. A gente está agora nas quartas de final, né? O Elite 8, mas Marshall passando, Pitt passando, a gente vai transmitir o Final Four e, se Deus quiser, dando tudo certo, a gente ainda pode ter uma final. E lembrando que eles estão em lados opostos do bracket, então a gente pode ter uma final Marshall contra Pittsburgh, os brasileiros contra o Rodrigo, que é brasileiro da Pittsburgh. Então vamos torcer para que dê esse cruzamento. Já volto aí, deixa rolar um pouquinho aqui o intervalo e a gente já volta para comentar mais. Valeu, galera. Lembra de clicar no like, inscrever, enfim, toda essa parte de YouTube. Pô, galera, botou um tela branca aí no intervalo. Eu vou soltar aqui alguns lances do jogo de Pittsburgh para a gente poder ir analisando um pouco mais o nível de jogo lá. Lá também está no intervalo, mas eu vou voltar aqui para os lances mais importantes, enfim, minutos finais. Teve uma falta perigosa de Washington. Então vou soltar aqui o jogo, alguns lances de Pittsburgh e Washington, e aí a gente volta depois para Marshall e Georgetown. Os 2 jogos 0-0, os 2 jogos valendo vaga na semifinal e os 2 jogos com o brasileiro. O Rodrigo lá na Pittsburgh, ele começou no banco, ele ainda não entrou. Ele acabou entrando nos 2 jogos, está entrando sempre, praticamente aquele 12º jogador, fez gol também, então vamos acompanhar o Rodrigo por lá. Vou soltar aqui alguns lances da Pittsburgh e Washington, e aí já a gente volta por aqui. Vamos ver. Deixa eu dar full screen por aqui. Pronto, os 2 estão jogando, galera, também é legal falar. Até o Elite Eight, eles estão jogando nesse complexo que é próximo do estádio que vai ser a final. Tem algumas transmissões que ele até aparece lá atrás do estádio. A partir da próxima rodada, eles já jogam no estádio, enfim, toda a estrutura de jogo profissional. Aqui a Pittsburgh está de branco e o Washington de azul e preto. A Pittsburgh atualmente é a maior ranqueada, porque a Clemson caiu, ela era a número 2, então ela assumiu esse posto de melhor ranqueada. Então vamos acompanhar por aqui um pouquinho de Pittsburgh e Washington, lembrando que os 2 jogos estão no intervalo e já a gente volta com o segundo tempo dos 2 jogos. Olha, quase gol de Washington. Washington eliminou Penn State. Washington é uma equipe muito boa também. Então, de novo, jogo aéreo, bola sobrou ali. Esse goleiro da Pittsburgh está muito cogitado também para ser draftado. Então, é um goleiro muito bom. Mesmo assim, ele conseguiu tirar. A bola bateu ali no travessão. E já é a segunda bola na trave, pelo que o narrador falou, de Washington. Então, o jogo lá também tá aberto. Pode ser que tem alguma surpresa por lá também. Nossa torcida tá com Pittsburgh, mas o time da Washington é muito bom também. O Jorge perguntou aqui, não, Washington foi para o último jogo podendo empatar contra Stanford, só que acabou perdendo. Então, o campeão da Pac-12 foi Stanford, mas Washington, enfim, está com um recorde muito bom, 12 vitórias, 3 derrotas só. E um ponto também, galera, eu estava comentando no jogo da Marshall antes. Olha a diferença dos dois jogos. Esse jogo está um jogo muito mais americanizado, muito mais direto, muito mais físico, muito mais bola na área. O jogo da Marshall contra Georgetown tá muito mais técnico, muito mais bola no chão. Então, para vocês verem a diferença que tem em estilos de jogo dentro do college. E lá agora tá quase voltando o jogo, e aí a gente volta pro jogo da Marshall. O jogo tá sem áudio. Galera, falei, sempre que tiver alguma coisa assim, lembra de me avisar, porque toda vez que eu vou mudar a tela, vou compartilhar, eu preciso ativar o áudio de uma outra forma por aqui, pelo sistema, e às vezes ele vai errado, então sempre me avisem. Beleza? Deixa eu voltar aqui. Agora acho que vai estar certo. Confirma isso, o áudio da transmissão tá tendo agora.
Charlie Ostrom. Towards the edge of the 6-yard box, headed by Ordonez. Saylor was the target. And Soto concedes a goal kick, trying to win the second ball.
Presentation correction coming in for the Huskies in the AGA.
Pitt trying to play things from the back, and you see the high press from the Huskies. Obviously, the Panthers not wanting to fall into the trap that they've put UCF in when they scored 3 goals from defensive mistakes from the back, as Dexter shakes off Briscoe, and a heavy touch. And I think Sam Fowler may have taken a slight kick from Alexander Dexter trying to win the ball, as you saw him slide in here in the 38th minute. Didn't look like there was much intent, any malicious intent in that, as the clock is stopped here in the 38th minute, but that slight kick kind of stunning goalkeeper Sam Fowler for just a moment. And he says he's okay. Obviously, referee Matthew Thompson wanting to make sure, not wanting to put the goalkeeper in a bit of bother here, and obviously making sure that concussion protocols are met. Sam Fowler, as we said, 6 saves in the win against Missouri State, 35 on the year, and he's currently second all-time in career goals against average, just under just a little over 0.60 in terms of his career goals against average in his 2 seasons. Washington. Here's Mirkovic, the defensive midfielder. Now Ordonez. Ordonez bringing it up, trying to connect with Löffelsend, and it's out of play. Huskies send a couple more subs in. Looks like you see number 7, Imanol Rosales, coming in for Nick Scardina. Rosales had an assist in the first goal for the Huskies. Actually coming in for Lucas Meek is Rosales, sophomore out of Querétaro, Mexico. Played for the Mexico U18 team and has been a solid rotation player in his 2 years. As conversation with both the linesman and the referee and the 4th official for who was last touched off of. Referee Matthew Thompson says a throw to Washington. And again, you see Saylor and Burks running into the box for a long throw by Charlie Ostrom, as he jokingly takes a seat on the Pittsburgh bench before sending this ball in to the edge of the box. Sailor's the target, back header. And again, Campuzano is there to claim it. But again, this is why Charlie Ostrom, number 20 in purple for the Huskies, has had 11 assists this year, second in the country. It's because of long throws, set pieces. As Jackson on a good run, and a foul is we got a pullback, and the first yellow card issued to Washington. And we'll get a confirmation. I believe it may have been on Crowley as advantage was played. We'll get a confirmation in just a moment, but it gives the Panthers a free kick and the first yellow card issued to the Huskies here in the 41st minute. Wasn't sure if it was Crowley or the central midfielder or if it was Ostrom, the left back. And it is issued to Ryan Crowley, the central midfielder for the Huskies out of Golden, Colorado. His first year as a starter, as Luffelson trying to connect up with Jackson, and it falls out of play. Ryan Crowley did very well in their last game against Missouri State, marking Jacob Dowling and Coca, two of Missouri State's best attacking players. Crowley playing.
Boa, galera. Time da Marshall voltando aqui para campo. Vou soltar lá de novo o jogo. A gente já vai começar. Espera aí. Já voltou até os narradores. Deixa eu botar. Me avisa se o áudio vai ficar certo, hein? Que é sempre aquele ponto. Espera aí. Confirma se vocês estão ouvindo tudo certo. Galera reunindo, eles devem falar já se volta com alguma troca, enfim. Vamos voltar para o segundo tempo aqui da Marshall. E o jogo da Pitt também realmente voltou. Botei agora aqui no ao vivo. Começou 1 minuto antes ali, já está com 43. E o da Marshall vai começar agora.
Memories are going to be made, memories that these players, these coaches, these fans will be talking about for decades. Who's going to be the hero that either sends Marshall to their first college cup berth ever or sends the Hoyas to their 3rd in 8 years?
Incredible storylines as we get you said. Georgetown back out there in their grays, Marshall in the dark uniforms. Marshall, as far as we can see, did not go to their bench at all, whereas Georgetown brought in 5 different players, and Georgetown right away here in possession. How many of those subs start now for Georgetown?
All 5.
Okay. Thank you very much, Dan.
So, Edgo, Franks, Lay, Burns.
Ó, já deu para ver lá embaixo que o número 11, o Jamie, voltou de titular. Então agora acho que é isso. Vai ter que voltar o cara e jogar com ele, fazer algumas jogadas com o Gabriel ali. E ele voltou até na ponta esquerda. O Rafa falou que talvez poderia jogar mais centralizado, mas acho que pela situação do jogo, o coach Chris quis manter ele ali na ponta esquerda mesmo, que é onde ele é mais perigoso, né? E mesmo assim, estava tendo marcação individual em cima do Vitor Dias. Então pode ser que dessa forma ele atraia mais a marcação, né? A atenção da marcação e sobre mais espaço para o Vitor jogar. Então vamos acompanhar esse lado esquerdo da Marshall, que como eu falei é muito forte.
That growth has been immense at all levels, and including now we're finally seeing American-born and bred players making it on the stage in Europe.
100%. The Thundering Herd with the same 11 out there, and as Dan Helfrich just showed you, Georgetown with Brian Weiss electing to keep those 5 subs on there, so you know in the second half they can leave and re-enter, so perhaps that will be part of the game plan for Brian Weiss to use that depth, 16 players, and we'll see if Coach Grassi goes to his bench at all.
It's a perfect day for football. We talked about the potential for threatening weather, but right now it's a light breeze, partly cloudy. You get some occasional bursts of sun like we have now, but as a player, these are ideal environments to compete in.
Yeah, we'll check the weather. I feel like that is a big mistake to do, but it's kind of nice to know what's going on. As for the moment, boy, last night when we looked at the weather around this time, they were calling for lightning all day long, and right now they're not. So that's a good sign.
Look at that run by Will Sands. And Will Sands, that's a 70-yard run ball for the left back, and he wins a free kick in a very dangerous spot. And Will Sands, from a great soccer family. We talked about the Burns family, the Sands family. James Sands, a top player for NYCFC, impressive, sort of. Will Sands has a national championship ring for his first year at Georgetown, impressive, sort of. How about his older sister, Kate? 2 national championship rings from her time as a player at Williams College on the Division III level. So Will needs to win a ring again this year just to compete with his oldest sister.
Yeah, Williams College is legit. I've had their coach on the United Soccer Coaches podcast several times because I talked to all the national championship coaches. That's a good little nugget there, Dan. Appreciate that. Over the ball, the Hoyas here, 4 minutes in. And that means the leader of the team, the engine, Pedro Dolabello, looks like he wants to take this one instead of Schneider, who scored that wonder goal.
It's Polvara.
Right, I got my teams mixed up there.
It's Polvara, dangerous from this spot.
So Polvara for Georgetown, good stuff, Dan, and a save there. Tell me more about Polvara. He scored the first one from the penalty spot against Penn State.
He's a classic two-way midfielder. When Zawadzki was playing with him in the central midfield, it gave him a little more free rein to be more of an attacking player. As Zawadzki's moved to the back with Hope Gunn's departure, Polvara has showed his defensive range. But Polvara, his strength, his physicality, and his ability to strike the ball from distance are elite characteristics that have him rated by many as a top prospect at the next level.
Yeah, obviously I'm mistaken there. Got the teams wrong, but I will say both Polvara and Dolabella are both 6'4", so that was the only correlation there. And Polvara, a sophomore from Pleasantville, New York, Brunswick High School. Georgetown in the grays, Marshall in the dark uniforms, and Marshall will win it back here. Let's see what they can do in transition. Going back toward the midfield there.
It's Alves. And a great tackle by Trevor Burns there. It was Alves, though, who we didn't see as much attacking from Marshall down the left side in the first half. It was more Linehouse on the right, but Alves showed his quality there.
So I do believe there has been a goal scored in that Washington Pitt game. We'll try to find out who scored the goal. Brian Ware flying solo over there on field 4, but at least there's been a goal on one of the two fields so far, Dan.
Ó, galera, aí 1-0 Pitt, gol do número 8, que enfim, tá sendo cotado para draft, também é um dos destaques da Pitt. Vou pegar aqui o replay e já solto. Então, no outro jogo, 1-0 Pitt, 1-0 time do Brasileiro, né, o time do Rodrigo, que a gente tá na torcida também. Notícia boa, agora falta um golzinho da Marshall. Vou pegar aqui o replay e solto já o gol, mas no outro jogo, 1-0 Pitt contra Washington.
Turning with it. This is the aforementioned, wrongly, of course, Dolabella. And the pass out wide to Yosef, and no problem for Georgetown.
Yosef's a front runner, but we've seen throughout, he likes to find the channel on the right side. And Dolabella, you can tell, is anticipating the run right. Yosef's expecting to get it there. The quality of the service was not there at the moment, but Yosef being on the ball more is a good sign. And there's a turnover, a poor ball by Nielsen.
So running with it now is Fernandez, and Fernandez taken down. Mark Kadlecic said it's a dive, so they'll keep it with Georgetown.
And it was Polvara showing that defensive range I spoke about a moment ago after an uncharacteristic turnover by the freshman Nielsen.
I can tell you, Dan, that it's Pittsburgh on top of Washington. Jay Vidovich, one of the all-time great coaches. What a job. I mean, you talk about a team that was left for dead, Pittsburgh, and he's got Pittsburgh looking like a team that can win a national championship, as we'll have a yellow card issued here to Milo Yosef, so Yosef gets a yellow.
Well, Dean, one of the things I like about this men's college tournament is you could convince me any of these 8 teams could win a national championship.
Yeah, we talked about that quite a bit just the other day, and I think you're 100% spot on. And you know what? There's probably another 8 to 10 that have been sent home already that could legitimately have won a national championship.
Including both teams that the Hoyas and the Thundering Herd eliminated, the Nittany Lions and the Tigers of Clemson. Terrific seasons, and certainly had a ball bounced a different way, either of those teams would have fashioned their chances to hoist a college cup.
Dan, I'm putting you on the spot, but remind me the trip that Georgetown took to win the 2019 College Cup. Do you remember the games they played and how they got there? At least some of them.
Of course I remember. And, I spoke earlier about Elite Eights being the moment where memories are made for a lifetime. There's a memory of a Jacob Montez free kick down 1-0 against Washington at home at Georgetown Shaw Field with about 12 minutes remaining, a direct kick from 25 yards out that sends the Hoya faithful into delirium. And eventually Dotson scores as well to win the game 2-1. And then in the semifinals, last year it was Virginia and Wake Forest competing, UVA beating Wake Forest, Georgetown defeating Stanford in convincing fashion, including one of the great goals in Georgetown history scored by Sean Zawadzki off a half volley. And then Georgetown and Virginia playing, Dean, what some have said is the greatest championship game in the modern era of men's college soccer, a 3-3 draw that ended in penalty kicks, 7-6, Georgetown converting all 7 of its penalties.
Right here, right?
Aí, vou soltar aqui agora o gol da Pitt. Aproveitar que a bola saiu, o jogo deu uma esfriada. Vou soltar aqui. Espera aí. Aí, vê se vocês já estão enxergando aqui o jogo. O gol vai sair daqui a pouco. Deu uma voltadinha antes, como eu falei, não dá para voltar exatamente no lance do gol. Mas é isso, o jogo estava com 39 minutos faltando, né? 6 minutos jogados. A Pitt está trabalhando mais a bola agora no campo de ataque e conseguiu abrir o placar. Vou soltar aqui o gol, deixar rodando.
Wake Forest before taking command here of this Pitt Panthers program in 2015, and he has scored in every NCAA tournament game and has 14 on the season. As you see, Noel and Luffelson hug it out. An excellent cross by Jasper Luffelson to Valentin Noel.
Aí, como vocês viram ele falando, esse Valentino é o destaque da Pitt, sem dúvida, já fez 14 gols e fez gol em todos os jogos dos Nationals até agora. Então, é jogador que vai pintar no draft com certeza. Vamos voltar para o jogo da Marshall. Pittsburgh segue 1-0 contra Washington. E agora vamos voltar para o jogo da Marshall contra Georgetown. Espera aí. Pronto, voltando o jogo. Faltando 35 minutos. De novo, lembrando que se persistir o empate, prorrogação, 2 tempos de 10 minutos, não são 15, 2 tempos de 10 minutos. E continuando o empate, vai para as penalidades.
Marshall and Georgetown still at zeros.
5 substitutions, so Coach Weiss going hockey on us here.
E Georgetown também mudando metade do time de novo, igual fizeram no primeiro tempo. Talvez a Georgetown esteja ali com um banco mais qualificado para girar. E a Marshall é o que a gente falou, já jogou 2 prorrogações. Então, vamos ver se isso vai pesar, se vai pesar a perna da galera da Marshall, mas a Georgetown tá girando bem os atletas.
Seeks pockets of space and exploits them, and they give you an honest day's work on both sides of the field.
Brian Weiss looks pretty relaxed over there.
Yeah, the tell on Brian when he's not relaxed is that the gum chomping meter starts to go way higher. So we don't have a camera that gets a good look, but when the gum chomping gets really intense, it's his sign of anxiety.
I like that you mentioned intense because Chris Grassi on the other side, I mean, he's got steely eyes and he looks right through you. You felt like he's looking into your soul as he tries to motivate his team.
Good ball finds Hagart. Now Tabora, top of the box, good feet.
Tabora will push it out wide right. And here is Rothrock. Looked like Rothrock was looking for a little give and go, but defended well by Marshall.
But the Hoyles will be pleased with this 9-10 pass sequence here.
Yeah, Hagart included in some of these passes. You mentioned those three players, including the high-scoring Dotson, electing to go pro, but the key part of that story was Brian Weiss and the university supporting their desire to go pro.
Indeed. In this unique year, players, of course, had planned to graduate in December because the season would have been over, and they prepared for 4 years for the opportunity to turn professional early in calendar year 2021. And so when that call comes a-knocking, the university and the staff proud, frankly, of their players, and the outlook was simple: next guy up. And it's given an opportunity for a bunch of players as we see the Hoyas earning a corner here.
So another corner for Georgetown. And we also have more subs coming in for Brian Weiss.
I think that was actually the P announcer catching up from the line change from before. So it still is the original 11 for both sides right now. Riviere, who's scored in each of the first two matches, will try to provide an assist here from the corner flag.
E acaba que nesse jogo as duas equipes, vamos deixar passar. As duas equipes são mais baixas, jogam mais com a bola no chão, então as bolas paradas não estão sendo tão exploradas, tão perigosas, igual era o jogo contra a Clemson. Mas, mesmo assim, é isso aí. Uma bola na área pode sair o gol e definir o jogo. Então vamos seguir. Marshall tá bem no jogo e na outra partida segue 1-0 Pitt.
Semla is the best goalkeeper in the country, and he doesn't want to hear any argument to the contrary. Semla, the lowest goals against average in Conference USA history.
Wow. I respect his belief. It's interesting. He coached under Steve Burns, as you see Joseph closing in there on the Georgetown goalkeeper.
E essa pressão alta da Marshall tá quase encaixando, né? Pressionaram lá o goleiro, agora foi bater rápido também. Isso é uma coisa interessante, galera. Aqui no Brasil tem muito disso, o cara fica na frente da bola, o outro vai e chuta pro juiz dar o amarelo. Lá, eles levam muito mais com, você tá querendo malandragem pra cavar amarelo lá. E eles costumam deixar seguir. Não sei exatamente o que diz a regra nesse ponto, mas o cara tentou fazer isso, o juiz deixou rodar o jogo, deixou seguir o jogo e problema dele. Escanteio para Marshall, vamos ver se sai alguma coisa agora.
Yeah, he was flying up and down against Clemson. It felt like the offense was running through number 30.
Roberts will come over to take the corner.
Roberts, a senior from Langport, England, Ivy Bridge Community College. We've gone 15 minutes here in the second half.
Roberts tying the long-held Marshall assist season record in 2019 with 10. So a playmaker above all else.
Another conversation between Marquette Lessick and Joseph has already been given that yellow, so he needs to be careful. Headed by Rothrock. Rothrock wanting the ball quickly.
Roberts would like to have that corner over again. All the runs there were to the front post and the penalty spot, and he loops the ball to the back post. Great first touch by Tabora, and he's fouled. And what color will this card be?
Wow, that was a hard tackle coming in there from Marshall, as once again, it's number 20, Masionas, and Marquette Lessick talk to number 20.
And Sean Zawatsky nearby the Georgetown captain.
Aproveitar que tá parado aqui, passar a informação também que já falei em outras transmissões. O número 11, o Jamie Roberts, ele foi draftado já pelo Sporting Kansas City. Ele bateu o escanteio lá. E a equipe liberou ele jogar essa última temporada por causa do Corona. Então, terminando aqui, ele vai se apresentar já no Sporting. Então, todo jogo pode ser o último jogo dele na Marshall. E ele é interessante que ele é atleta internacional também, igual vocês vão ser, da Inglaterra. E ele também foi uma transferência de Junior College. Ele estudava na Ivy Breed Community College e depois transferiu para Marshall. Então, atleta internacional igual você, fez o caminho da Junior College, igual muito brasileiro faz, e foi draftado. Então, exemplo claro também desse caminho que a gente sempre fala para vocês, o camisa 11 da Marshall, o Jamie Roberts.
As you mentioned, Friday night, and then how about Monday when both the women and the men in back-to-back form will celebrate a national championship at Wake Med Soccer Park on ESPNU, as that one is centered across and once again picked up there by Marshall.
And the intensity and rhythm of the match, Dean, is picking up right now on both ends. That time the Hoyas find Deleuze wide, but the cross against a goalie like Semler or frankly Nicopolitis, those crosses from the end line, they have to be played further than the 6-yard box. If they're played like that one was inside the 6-yard box, a goalkeeper of the quality of a Semler or Nicopolitis is going to grab that every time.
Long ball for the Hoyas and no problem for Semler. Grassi assisted by Petsa Ivanovic and Josh Fega and Kyle Sinecki, the other assistant coach, and a graduate assistant, Anthony Urati, in his first season. And you can tell us about the Georgetown coaching staff.
The staff, Mike Casper and Connor Lakota, and then graduate assistant Brian Boole, who works with the goalkeepers. And that Georgetown staff, of course, winning a national championship a year ago. Two of Coach Weiss's longtime assistants taking other Division I head coaching jobs in the last few years. And I know a great source of pride for any coach when the coaching tree starts to flourish. Zach Samuel, who took the American Eagles to this NCAA soccer tournament, and then Brian Gill, a terrific coach in his own right, the Pennsylvania coach, who's chomping at the bit for the Ivy League to get back into action in the fall.
Looking forward to that. 27-20 remaining here in the second, still searching for that first goal. We can tell you that Pitt leading Washington 1-0. On the women's side, 3 ACC teams making it, along with Jerry Smith and Santa Clara. Ironically, right after Florida State won, Yuji Zhao of Chinese international claim scored the winning penalty kick, ripped off her shirt. And the first text I got was from Brandy Chastain talking about what a great celebration. Of course, then she was asking if I was on the call for Santa Clara. I wasn't, but Brandy Chastain, she's right up there with Randy Moss. She is coming in for the College Cup. So there'll be
Dean,
superstars everywhere.
I'll give you credit. I happened to be on a long road trip yesterday, and believe it or not, I was tuned into that Florida State-Duke match, and you made the Chastain call live as it happened, and the shirt came off. So good recognition in the moment.
Finally.
And Dean, to say you've been the iron person of this College Cup would be an understatement. I think this is match 11 for you at Field 2 in the last 5 days.
Yeah, well, it's certainly a utopia of soccer, right? And you and I both love the sport, so any opportunity to be involved in it, particularly college soccer, I've hung my hat on it for quite some time, as have you, and certainly great.
Então, não sei como que tá o clima lá dentro, mas esse juiz tá toda hora parando o jogo para conversar. Não sei se o time da Marshall tá reclamando muito, mas toda hora ele pega, para e fala com alguém. Já ficou um tempão falando com o Pedro, agora falando com o alemão ali, então não sei. Mas é isso, teve uma falta ali no Vitor Dias que ele não marcou também, então vamos prestar atenção nisso também. O clima não parece estar tão tranquilo ali entre a equipe da Marshall e o juiz, não.
Excellent point. This is good work by Georgetown to earn the whistle, as getting fouled right there is Chris Hagart. Wow, and another hard tackle coming in from the right back. Chris Grassi showing the dive. I'm not sure. Almost halfway through the second half. Dean Linke with Dan Helfrich. Dan, let's get your thoughts first on the Thundering Herd.
The Thundering Herd expected to be at Georgetown's level or above it coming in, and they expect, given the experience on the roster, to be in a tight game late, and that doesn't bother them at all. So they're very pleased with where things stand right now. If I'm Chris Grassi, the only worry for me is I haven't found Yusuf and Roberts enough in places where they can face the goal. So how do I get them facing the goal to ask questions of the Georgetown back line?
Meanwhile, for Georgetown, they've had those line shifts. Your assessment of Brian Weiss and the Hoyas?
The assessment is that the rhythm of passing is better in this second half. But if you have the Big East midfielder of the year, the Mac Herman semifinalist, Polvara on your roster, you expect him to win games. And right now, Polvara not in the action enough.
Okay, good stuff from Dan Helfrich as we are just about halfway through this second half, still searching for that first goal. The shot situation, 5 for the Hoyas, just 2 for Marshall.
And that shot total of 7, 2/3 of the way into a game reflects the KG tactical matchup we've seen.
Offside flag is up as we've seen Marshall offside 4 times now.
Team, when's the last time you've seen a college soccer match, especially the third match in 6 days, 7 days, where the coach hasn't made a substitution 70 minutes into the match?
Yeah, I'm shocked by it. I really am. But clearly he believes these are the 11 that are going to get him there, and Chris Grassi riding them all the way home at the moment. And I don't see anybody looking to check in right now either, Dan, for Marshall.
No, it's a pretty relaxed looking group of substitutions. But I'll tell you, the mentality of those bench players, they have to be switched on right now. We could be a moment away from an injury or a caution or something that calls on a player to enter the match that's, cold. And so how you keep yourself mentally switched on is a really important part of being a substitute at this level.
It's interesting. The summary showing the yellow card that we thought could potentially be a red, but as you said, it was definitely the right call to make a yellow, particularly with the stakes so high in Masionis. But the summary does not show what I thought was a yellow to Milo Yosef. Didn't he receive a yellow card in the first half? I was pretty sure he did.
He received at least a stern talking to.
Okay. So perhaps maybe the yellow never came out, but I feel like I saw the yellow, and then the reaction kind of made me feel like, based on the fact that Yosef got a yellow in that game prior, I'm not quite sure what the yellow card situation is moving forward into the College Cup, if they are wiped out and it's a clean slate, or how that works exactly. Okay.
And Riviere offsides that time.
So all yellows are wiped away as they head into the College Cup, which is important.
I've never liked the yellow card accumulation rules in tournaments like the World Cup. The yellow card for me exists within the confines of a match, and having top players not able to play meaningful elimination games.
Sometimes on a silly yellow late, right? Yeah.
And I understand the intent, which is to keep the game sportsmanlike, but for me, you want the elite players always able to compete in the most important matches. And that will be the case here in the College Cup.
So perhaps we're not too surprised with where we are right now, after all, as we've talked about the belief of Marshall, the steely eyes of their head coach, Chris Grassi. We've talked about Georgetown losing some key players, but yet they know how to win. They're your reigning national champs. Georgetown getting ready to bring in 4 or 5 more to try to get it done, and Marshall continues to stay with their 11. So maybe we're not too surprised at 0-0 at the moment.
I'm not surprised it's 0-0. I'm surprised that neither team's been able to create a quality chance right now.
Direita e sobrou pro...
Well,
pro cara, Jamie Roberts, como eu falei, ele deve estar com a motivação imensa de sair para MLS com um título nacional, e é um dos líderes da equipe, mas que jogada do Vitor Dias lá na ponta, hein? Todo mundo achou que ele ia cruzar de direita, ele ainda puxou de novo, ele é muito mais canhoto, é aquele canhoto que quase não chuta com a direita, né? Então ele fez tudo para virar o corpo, botar para trás com a esquerda e sobrou pro Jamie só empurrar, mas que jogadaça do Vitor Dias lá na ponta, hein? 1-0, tomara que não deixe empatar, já deu, conversei com o Pedro do Labella, falei, chega de emoção pra gente, então 1-0 Marshall, 1-0 Pitt do outro lado, tudo encaminhando bem para mais uma rodada boa para as equipes que a gente está torcendo. Golaço, e vamos ver como que a Marshall vai responder. A zaga da Marshall é muito forte, mas não acho que eles têm que descer muito, porque o time da Georgetown é muito ofensivo, ó, já tem 5 caras ali embaixo, então 20 minutos para acabar o jogo, vamos seguir acompanhando, mas que golaço. Daqui a pouco eu vou repetir aqui, vou abrir em outra aba para tentar pegar o replay, já eu solto o replay, porque na transmissão eles não passam, mas jogadaça do Vitor Dias e 1-0 Marshall.
We'll try to take a look around there. If anybody can point it out, it is Dan Helfrich. So we saw 4 or 5 lining up.
All the substitutes are in here. Here's one of them, Ngo.
Okay.
Out wide to Deleuze. So Burns back in, Frank's back in. And Semla will do, in the first 15 minutes, if Semla had caught that ball like that, Dean, he'd stand straight up. That time, protecting a 1-0 lead, guess what? He's going to fall down. He's going to burn 9 or 10 seconds because that's what experienced goalkeepers do.
Yeah, we'll keep an eye on how much time he works off every time he touches the ball. But the goal coming from Roberts, as Dan told us, it was the work of Diaz, though, that made it easy for Roberts. And now we'll see Georgetown pressing for the equalizer.
The other thing we're going to see is that yellow fluorescent captain's armband of Sean Zawatsky further up the field. The Hoyas content to have Zawatsky play in that center back position as long as the game's tied, but with your season 18 minutes away from ending, the decorated central midfielder from Northern Ohio will absolutely be in more advanced positions. He's also a key target on these restarts. And it is Zawatsky who heads it just wide. I called his number. It hit his forehead and went just wide of the far post.
Zawatsky looking for his first goal of the season.
E aquilo que eu falei, mesmo a Georgetown não jogando pela bola parada, é sempre perigoso bola parada em situação de jogo dessa, situação decisiva que não pode tomar gol, então a Marshall tem que ficar ligada com isso. E aquilo, né, tentar segurar um pouco mais a bola no ataque para gastar o relógio, ficar nessa pressão aí atrás não é interessante, não.
He did so and led the goal. Can Polvara do the same? And as you asked me in the first half about Georgetown's run last year, again, Georgetown down 1-0 last year in this round in a very similar position, that time to Washington, this time to Marshall. But the hero from last year, Jacob Montez, is across the Atlantic Ocean. Who will be the hero for the Hoyas? If they can't find one, it'll be one of the great stories in college soccer.
They break through right there and picked up, though, by the goalkeeper, Semla.
And it was Trevor Burns almost breaking through there, but Semla shut the door.
Wow, a first ever College Cup on the line here for Marshall, whereas Georgetown trying to make 3 of the last 8, and your reigning national champions under some pressure. Since giving up that goal, Georgetown has dominated in possession, and they keep winning it back again. As Dan Helfrich pointed out, Zawatsky will push forward, and as you mentioned, can Dante Pavara come up big for the Hoyas? Falling back, excellent effort coming right there from Rocha, wearing that number 18 jersey. So Marshall under Chris Grassi, still the same 11 out there. Whereas not only Georgetown used 5 subs, but he is rotating them in and out on multiple occasions, particularly here in the second half.
Burns drawing the foul there. George, there's a good sign that Georgetown's still going to play their game. Instead of sending the entire team forward with a wide restart from 50 yards, the Hoyas just play quickly.
So, Dan, the story here on these first two games is if Marshall can hang on and Pitt can hang on, both those teams for the first time ever will make it their first visit in the College Cup.
Indeed, of the first four teams, Georgetown, the only team ever to have a College Cup appearance, as Washington has not either. And Chris Lay will come in. Lay, as we talked about in the first half, a senior. Lay also possesses the only long throw on the Hoya roster. We'll see if he deploys that at any point here in the last 15 minutes.
Brian Weiss no longer sitting down, as you saw him. You see him right there on your NCAA.com screen. He is easy to find. He is a giant of a man.
Former Dartmouth goalkeeper, where he played for Bobby Clark, whose son Jamie, the head man at Washington.
I got a good story on that one. This one is flicked right here and handled by Semla. So I went over and talked to Jamie before the game, and I said, hey, is it true that Bobby's going to be watching from Scotland? He's like, look, he's going to be watching, but he's not going to be watching my game. He's going to be watching Brian Weiss's game. He can't handle watching my games, but with Brian, a little bit different kind of relationship. It's not his son, although pretty close to it, and he'll figure out what's going on with Washington a little bit later, and I think he meant that.
Well, and the Clark coaching tree also includes Bobby's daughter, Jen, the head coach of the women's team at Claremont McKenna College, CMC, the Athenas out in California.
It reminded me of,
Ó, galera, tô com um replay já engatilhado aqui, dando uma diminuída o ritmo do jogo. Vou soltar aqui o replay do gol da Marshall. Ó, teve a falta agora, mas o cara levantou rápido. Parando aqui agora, alguém caindo no chão, vou soltar o replay do gol pra gente analisar um pouco melhor.
Yeah,
and the player who drew that foul, he's in the left-hand portion of your screen there, Max Schneider, who scored the goal against Clemson. But he's been in a really important role in the center of the park today. Hasn't been on the ball a lot, but you wonder why Polvara hasn't been made a huge imprint on this match. Max Schneider is a big reason for that.
Good call out on the defensive plan for Chris Grassi, trying to keep an eye on Dante Polvara. And we got some subs coming in finally for Marshall. Since the goal, the possession has been probably 80-20 in favor of the Hoyas, as you would imagine. A really good team here trying to get the equalizer. And there is a man who's already got one yellow, so he needs to be careful for Marshall. Talking about number 20, Colin Masionas.
Aí, vamos aproveitar que a bola ficou ali na ponta. Vou compartilhar aqui. Espera aí. Compartilhar aqui para a gente ver o replay do gol do Jamie Roberts com assistência do Vitor Dias. A jogada começou lá do outro lado, né, com o próprio Jamie Roberts. Muito bom. Vamos voltar para o jogo ao vivo antes que a gente perca alguma coisa. Espera aí. Vamos botar. Vamos voltar. Pronto, voltamos pro ao vivo. Espera aí.
Yeah, there's a couple players over far side of the field. Hard to make out who it is, but perhaps one of those players is Rothrock, and you're right. He has not been in there for quite some time. I don't know if you can make out if he's over there.
It's Rothrock and Riviere, who've been two of the most dangerous Hoyas throughout this NCAA tournament, who will come in the final 12 or so minutes.
Great to have Dan Helfrich with me, who could pick out a Georgetown Hoya from 2,000 miles away. Played there from 94 to 97, and Marquette Lessig letting them continue, but he'll bring it back, and Georgetown will perhaps get some numbers going forward here.
Fala, Felipe. Acho que você tinha até mandado essa resposta lá no direct, né? Já ia falar com você. No nosso programa a gente tem um direcionamento para o TOEFL, mas eu não sou professor de inglês. A gente tem parceria com uma escola preparada do TOEFL, conveniada com a ETS. E aí os atletas que querem ter a preparação no inglês, aula particular, preparação de TOEFL, preparação de prova, a gente tem a parceria com eles. Então, quem tiver interessado pode fazer, mas muitos dos atletas preferem pegar o nosso direcionamento e estudar sozinho, o que é ok também. Então tem essas duas possibilidades, tem desconto com essa escola, eu te passo para falar direto com o diretor, o Fabrício, ele faz um planejamento, enfim. Então tem essas duas formas, você pode fazer por conta própria ou pode utilizar o nosso parceiro. Fechado?
Been minimal. 6 shots though for Georgetown, 3 for Marshall. All 3 of Marshall's shots though have been on frame. For Georgetown, Dan, just 1.
Yeah, they have not asked many questions of Semla, but it's a moment of brilliance from Vitor Diaz, the sophomore attacking player from Brasilia, Brazil, who found Roberts for the lone marker. And Sands with the slashing run forward.
Sands with a pretty good ball and a good idea to think that there was going to be a Hoya over there on the far post, and there, in fact, was a Hoya on the far post, Dan.
And again, Sands, another one of these players recruited as an attacking player, converted to a left back. Will we see Sands making more runs forward here in the last 10 minutes?
Marquette Lessig talking to the Marshall bench. Is he going to give a card to the bench?
It appears that way.
So a yellow card given to...
E como eu falei, o juizão tá pegando um pouco no pé da marcha ali, desde chamar a atenção dos jogadores, já chamou a atenção do Pedro, já chamou a atenção do volante ali, o alemão. Agora foi reclamado um assistant coach que estava lá atrás, falando que ele estava saindo da área técnica ali, enfim. Tem muito juiz americano que é isso, é mais cultura deles, eles têm essa cultura de autoridade, no futebol americano você mal pode falar com o juiz, então eles são um pouco chatos com isso. Talvez o time da Marshall, por ter muito estrangeiro, europeu fala muito com o juiz também brasileiro, então pode ser que ele esteja um pouco ali pegando no pé da galera da Marshall.
Indeed, moment of brilliance. Attacking players, they only need one moment sometimes, and for Diaz, he took advantage of it, finding the end line, pulling the ball back.
Come the Hoyas, taken away there, but one back by Georgetown. It looked like a foul against Marshall, and it was. So now Georgetown perhaps will take a little more time on this free kick.
Haggart sprints over. And certainly Polvara, Nielsen, and Zawadzki, the likely targets with Haggard on the ball. And Engo also, who I think is coming out of the game at the next opportunity.
Haggart, good ball in, but picked out of the air. Easy for Semla.
It is easy, and if you're going to play a more lofted ball, Dean, it has to be in a different spot than that. That is like catching a can of corn for a goalkeeper of Semla's quality.
Yeah, and size, right? 6'3" he is listed. The big man from Germany plays like he's 6'6", 6'7". And I see what you're saying. It's got to be at least 9-10 yards out, not right on top of the 6. Who's Georgetown looking to bring in here? Brian Weiss with some instruction.
It's still Riviere and Rothrock, who no doubt are frustrated. They've been there for 4 minutes. And now Joe DeLuz is going to join them. But you make the decision to hold Riviere and Rothrock in reserve till 15 or so minutes, and then you put them to the scores table, and they're not in the game.
Great call. That looked like a foul from behind on Marshall, and it's Marquette Lessig. Nope. Oh, yeah, he is going to go find that player to give another yellow. Great job, Dan. And I believe it'll go to number 6, I think. Was that Dos Santos or was it Alves?
Nathan Dos Santos.
Okay, thank you. Nathan Dos Santos, the junior from Canada. It's interesting when you look at this Marshall lineup, when you say Canada, it doesn't seem as sexy as some of the other countries we're talking about with Marshall. And of course, great players coming out of Canada. But Chris Grassi getting it done the international way. That's a good ball served in. Headed first, though, for Marshall and cleared out of there by the Thundering Herd.
Yeah, that's a much better ball because it's driven. And so Semla can't come off his line on that one. And finally, given that it's a Georgetown throw-in, more than 5 minutes after Coach Wheats made the decision to re-enter Riviere and Rothrock, it takes more than 5 minutes for them to actually find the pitch.
So here they are with 8 minutes to go, needing to make a difference as Georgetown in desperate search of that equalizer. Do you recall in that 2019 run when they got the equalizer, approximately where that minute mark was?
It was about 74th or 5th minute.
Okay.
Here's Hagart. Great piece of defending there. And it's Diaz coming all the way back into a more defensive position. Does a really good job bodying up Hagart there.
So standing by on speed dial, Randy Moss for Marshall, for what I understand will be the pregame speech at the main stadium, Salem Stadium, unless Georgetown can equalize. It's a pretty good ball in. Oh, and just a little bit behind the runner. I wasn't sure who made that run there.
It was Rothrock, and I think Rothrock expected there to be a runner behind Riviera. Positive touch.
Georgetown back into the 18. That was Rothrock again, who has looked good. He's only been back out there for a little over a minute, Dan.
But it's that man, the number 8, Polvara, who hasn't had a ton of touches.
3 yellow cards given, and we do not believe one is to Joseph. So just these 3 on the summary show up.
When an important decision by the assistant referee, he saw a second deflection there. And so a goal kick versus the corner that Kyle Linares thought he had won. I think the assistant referee got that one right. It was a terrific piece of defending there by Gabriel Alves, the freshman from Sao Paulo. Alves has gone the distance at left back today and has been sturdy.
Marshall advancing with a tough 2-1 overtime victory over Fordham. And then, of course, that penalty kick victory over Clemson. And now looking to end the reign of the national champs from Georgetown, the Georgetown Hoyas, who are indeed your reigning national champs, winning it in 2019.
And Dean, we talked about with a tempo that was slow, with 2 teams playing a
Faltando 5 minutos para acabar agora a partida, o narrador falou uma coisa legal. A Marshall vai chegar com moral no Final Four, né? Dando tudo certo agora. Não vamos zicar ainda. Mas eliminou na primeira rodada, na segunda fase, uma equipe que estava invicta, que era Fordham. Depois eliminou a número 1 do país, a Clemson. E agora está eliminando a atual campeã nacional, Georgetown. Então, olha, 3 vitórias expressivas para Marshall realmente mostrar, pô, a gente está aqui para disputar o título. E passando, eles pegam agora o vencedor de North Carolina e Stanford, se eu não me engano. Faltando 2 minutos lá no jogo da Pitt também. 1-0 Pitt. Então a gente está tendo os 2 brasileiros classificando por agora. Os 2 times com brasileiros, no caso. Né?
Well said. The winner of this game will face the winner of Wake Forest and North Carolina. Wake Forest.
Não, me corrigiu aqui o cara. O vencedor daqui pega Wake Forest ou North Carolina, 2 times da ACC, 2 times muito fortes, e os 2 times com torcida próxima. Os 2 times ficam próximos aí da cidade de Cary. Wake Forest ou North Carolina, praticamente 2 times da casa. Né?
The former NC State coach has done a really nice job at Liberty. They lost to Liberty. And interestingly enough, Kelly Finley, different kind of cat than Chris Grassi, but also a very confident man. Felt like they could beat North Carolina. They did. North Carolina made some changes. They beat Pittsburgh 3-0, and then North Carolina got rolling to get to this point. That'll be a great match to see who faces the winner of this one.
It will indeed. All the credit to Chris Grassi and his staff for the way they had the Thundering Herd prepared today. Stoppage in play as Joseph heads to the sideline.
I think just for some water, though. I think he's going to stay out there. I'm not sure, though. Oh, there's a player down, so that's why. So a Marshall player down, Marshall trainer
It's
out.
Max Schneider.
Yep. So Schneider will most likely have to come out.
So Schneider, the goal scorer, as Marshall advanced over Clemson today, called upon to do the dirty work defensively to combat Big East Midfielder of the Year, Dante Polvara, and Schneider has been equal to that task from minute one.
Yeah, you really did a great job pointing out that matchup, and part of the reason why, like you said, we didn't say Polvara as much. So 2-0 Pitt on top. So Jay Vidovich, I mean, what a wonder brain as a coach. I mentioned Austin DeLuz, who played for him, told me that it won't take Pitt long. When I talked to Jay Vidovich before that North Carolina
E faltando 2 minutos, a Pitt fez 2-0. Então, acabou o confronto de lá, Pitt praticamente classificada. E agora vamos terminar aqui, faltando 3 minutos. Então, Pitt do Rodrigo, parabéns para o Rodrigo aí já, classificado para o Final Four. Praticamente fez um gol ali, faltando 1 minuto. 2-0 Pitt. E aqui vai ter mais drama, vai ser um pouco mais dramático até o final, mas 1-0 Marshall contra Georgetown.
So in this final 3 minutes, we're going to stay with it as Georgetown, you know, is going to try to pepper the goal. But you had touched on the fact that Seton Hall, a team that you know well, because they play Georgetown, you believe they can beat Indiana.
I believe they will beat Indiana. And I believe Seton Hall will give Pitt as good a game as anybody in the country were they to match up.
There you go. You heard it here, folks. And that was a kind of silly foul from Marshall right there, coming from a Raphael off the bench, because last thing you want to do is allow Georgetown to set up here, and that's exactly what's going to happen.
It is, and the clock's still ticking down here. On a free kick from the middle part of the field, the key is, can you create an angle? So Georgetown will try to create an angle, and I think head the ball back across the face of goal, but Dos Santos says no.
Sent right back in, though, by the Hoyas. The Hoyas, and it's knocked away.
Linares, a terrific ball to Riviere.
Oh, far post was open and climbing there. That was Rothrock, right, off his head. Sounds like Pitt scored a Carly Lloyd goal from midfield, and now Pitt's feeling it. You're up 2-0, right? It's opened up, and the goalkeeper clearly was out. Georgetown sends it back in off of Joseph. The Hoyas.
Aproveitar que o zagueiro tirou. Parece que teve um gol do meio de campo agora da Pitt. 3-0. Acho que até o goleiro tinha subido. Não sei se foi a bola aérea. Sobrou uma bola do meio de campo. 3-0 Pitt. Agora vai acabar lá. Daqui a pouco a gente volta com os 2 gols finais da Pitt. 1 minuto 37. Agora é segurar, né? Botar a bola na ponta, tentar segurar a bola no ataque. E vamos acompanhar.
Ron and Dello Roberts travel over 970 miles to get here first, and they were parked right in the middle where all the buses are, and they claim their story. Hey, I've traveled 970 miles. I want to be here. Sent back in by Georgetown and handled there by the big man. Man, Semla makes it look easy, doesn't he? And down he goes.
And I'll make a second prediction. Seton Hall will beat Indiana, and if Randy Moss comes, he will not have the same transportation as the Roberts family.
A little bit different, indeed. Yeah, you wonder if he'll have the same jet that you took down here for this one.
Yeah, right. Polvara finds DeLuz.
DeLuz with that left foot. Oh, my, what a quality pass as it went right over, and knocking on the door was Riviere.
That was the chance for the Hoyas. It's their best chance of the entire match. It's Polvara to DeLuz to Riviere's forehead, but he didn't hit it the way he wanted.
Era a chance que a Georgetown tinha. Agora vai segurar ali na ponta, acabou o jogo. Fera demais, Marshall no Final Four. Vou me antecipar aqui um pouco. Ariel conversa bastante com a gente, Vitor Dias também, os brasileiros dessa equipe da Marshall, fazendo história, e como eu digo, bom para todo mundo. Imagina um time com 5 brasileiros no time titular sendo campeão nacional da D1, o tanto de atenção que vai atrair para os atletas brasileiros. Então, Muito bom. Vitor Dias, jogadaça ali na linha de fundo para o gol. Pessoa que tinha perguntado de draft. Os treinadores de MLS estão vendo esse jogo, com certeza. Então, Vitor Dias foi muito bem, Pedro foi muito bem, todo mundo acabou indo muito bem. Gabriel aqui, número 16, na lateral, monstro também. O Pedro ali de volante, às vezes meio campo mais avançado. Então é isso. Agora a Marshall classificou, vai pegar o vencedor, né, de Wake Forest contra North Carolina. O jogaço também das duas equipes, as duas equipes são da ACC. E é isso, do outro lado da chave, deixa eu pegar exatamente. Do outro lado da chave a gente já tem Pittsburgh, que já garantiu a vaga, e a Pittsburgh pega o vencedor de Seton Hall contra Indiana. Também jogaço, mas eu acredito que o lado de cá vai ser um pouco mais complicado. Wake Forest contra North Carolina. Deixar rodando aqui só o final da transmissão e aí já venho aqui pra gente trocar mais alguma ideia final.
At all 11 positions for Wake. So I think you'll see Wake, Marshall, Seton Hall, and Pitt as your final four. You'll text me tomorrow and let me know how I did in those predictions.
Dan Helfrich, who played for Keith the Batsnick at Georgetown from 94 to 97. You can catch him on the call for so many Georgetown games, and he's also a big-time businessman as well. I appreciate you taking time out of your busy schedule. Dan, it's been an honor to spend time with you. Thank you so much for coming down and being part of the broadcast.
Well, Dean, we'll do it again.
All right, well said. Dan Helfrich, Dean Linke, your final score, advancing to the College Cup for the first time ever. Marshall 1, Georgetown 0.
A transmissão já encerrou. Vou fechar aqui também, galera. Então, valeu, Marshall classificado. Depois eu ia falar com o Pedro para ele tentar entrar ao vivo, mas como a gente não vai ter outro jogo passando, vou encerrar, eles vão comemorar, ainda vão tomar banho no vestiário. Mas, fera demais. Já seguindo aqui, vou compartilhar o bracket só para a gente dar uma analisada final nele e ver quando vão ser os próximos jogos, os próximos confrontos. A gente vai ter Wake Forest contra North Carolina também, jogaço hoje. 6 horas, não vou transmitir porque, enfim, não vai ter brasileiro em campo, então não vem tanto ao caso, mas vai ser o confronto que vai definir quem vai enfrentar a Marshall. Então, vocês estão vendo aqui já o bracket, a Marshall passou nesse jogo, a gente ainda vai ter Indiana contra Seton Hall, para decidir quem pega a Pitt, e do outro lado, Wake Forest contra North Carolina, para decidir quem pega a Marshall, mas enfim, Marshall e Pittsburgh já classificadas, cada uma de um lado do bracket, né, do chaveamento, como eu falei. Então, semifinal aqui já tem Pittsburgh, na outra semifinal já tem agora a Marshall, ainda não atualizou. Deixa eu atualizar aqui em tempo real, vamos ver se já aparece com o final do jogo. Agora apareceu, pronto. Então, Marshall já está de um lado, Pittsburgh já está do outro. Aqui entra o vencedor de Wake Forest contra North Carolina, e do lado de cá entra o vencedor de Pittsburgh Seton Hall contra Indiana. Então, se as duas equipes passarem, a gente tem uma final que, cara, eu acho que seria o ideal, uma final Marshall contra Pittsburgh, ia ser jogaço, Rodrigo de um lado, do outro lado Pedro do Alabella, Vitor, Gabriel, o João e o Vini, os brasileiros da Marshall. Então, pode ser que a gente tenha um confronto muito fera. Próxima rodada, quarta-feira, não, mentira, sexta-feira, a gente tem o Final Four, que é a semifinal, e todos os times passando. Na segunda-feira que vem, a gente tem a final, 10 horas, horário do Brasil, aí dá pra gente fazer uma transmissão um pouco mais especial, mas com certeza já anota aí na agenda, sexta-feira, ainda não está definido o horário, né, mas vai ser sexta-feira, provavelmente, eu acredito que seja esse horário de 2 horas da tarde, a gente vai ter o Final Four. Final Four já é no estádio, no mesmo estádio da final, o Wake Med Park. Então, vai ser muito fera. Espero que vocês tenham curtido a transmissão. Não consegui pegar os gols da Pitt, que eles já tiraram a transmissão de lá, mas pegando, vou soltar lá no story do Instagram. Lembra de curtir aqui a transmissão, quem ainda não curtiu, inscrever no canal, enfim, Instagram, tudo isso que a gente tem. E sexta-feira a gente volta, tentar pegar alguns depoimentos também dos brasileiros da Marshall, do Rodrigo da Pitt. Então, é isso. Um abraço, boa tarde para todo mundo e valeu. Marshall no Final Four, aquele nosso desejo no início da temporada tá chegando próximo ali, então a gente vai continuar na torcida. Valeu, galera. Boa tarde. Valeu.